My name is Zach Chandler. I am the executive director of open source at Stanford, the OSPO at Stanford University. And today we're talking about a new partnership that we set up with our OSPO, which I think might be the first of its kind, but hopefully not the last. So there's uh, um, aspects of what we do at Stanford in our OSPO that probably would be good to tell you about first. So we've been in operation for a couple of years now. So a lot of that time was spent learning. Of course, we had hypotheses about what was going to be effective. And a lot of those turned out to be good choices. So fundamental aspects of our OSPO include our projects registry, surfacing good open source software work happening in the research enterprise. Research software is our focus in that we are situated within the Center for Open and Reproducible Science. Our faculty director is Russell Poldrak. Maya Mather is our associate director. So we were born with a instant faculty network, which is one of the great blessings we have at Stanford. So our projects registry was loaded with, say, 25 or so projects from day one. Now we have something closer to 100. And that has been because we do outreach throughout the university and trying to turn up not just projects, but we're very human-centered in the way that we do our work. So I would say one of our greatest assets is something called our Maintainers and Contributors Roundtable. So this is a regular convening. We try to identify and invite the coding leads from labs across the university that otherwise might not have a venue like this. They might not have a peer in their research group. So it's hard for them to get the supervision, mentorship, or advice, or even just camaraderie sometimes that they need. So we provide that in our monthly gatherings with food and topical guidance from them. So this group started with about 13 members. We have up to around 50 now, and maybe 15 on any given month, with travel and conflicts and things like that. So, and I also would like to introduce my colleague, Francesca Vera. So she is kind of like the beating heart of this organization. She is the one that pulls together the Maintainers and Contributors Roundtable each month. But I also want to segue into pyOpenSci and why we started this collaboration. So our members come from labs across Stanford with every possible scientific specialty you can imagine, from neuroscience to astrophysics and everything in between, operating at very, very high levels. Some of these folks are full-time research software engineers. Some of them have come from industry, fully loaded with this complete skill set. Others are scientists first, maybe postdocs, maybe grad students that have inherited a GitHub repository from someone who just left and maybe is not documented very well, which is like, one of the canonical problems in research software is that, that's the state of things, and that, rigor and code quality isn't always there, and people are left to fend for themselves. So that's the problem that we are aiming to solve with this group, because we pull all these people together as peers. We sort of check expertise at the door as like a differentiator, and so sometimes our topics end up being really advanced, but we do it in a very welcoming way so that everyone can learn. We have gotten into technical topics like testing suites, dependency management. We learned that code signing certs matter to some people, and very few people knew what those were. So it's a very organic forum for people to, it's a community of practice where people learn from each other. Um, and well, here we are in a curious deep dive. Well, we also have things called deep dives, and that's where we go. It's not unlike peer review, but it's a more open forum. It's less formalized, and it can broach into any all kinds of topics. But I realized that we had a gap as an office, and that peer review is one of the hallmarks of good science. And we know what that looks like when it comes to publishing papers. And I had heard of both pyOpenSci and our OpenSci. Um, and there's a lot of great open science outfits out there, and it's like I kind of knew about them, but I didn't really. I'm like I was watching, but I wasn't sure how to get involved. Um, and I think it was at the CZI Open Science meeting in Boston last year, where I met Noam Ross, who leads our OpenSci. And that's when it really started to dawn on me that we could do a lot of good by exposing our little community to this broader community around code peer review, for us to level up, and to engage in ways that not only benefit research projects at Stanford, but ultimately it would be great to have some of our coding leads become involved in those other projects. So maybe becoming reviewers or editors or what have you. So I think a lot of good can come from exposure and for us to compare methods and learn from each other. So this is something that I initially started exploring with Noam, and we are looking forward to bringing him into this collaboration in the fall. As it turns out, Leah Wasser was available for us when we wanted to get started with this. So we're starting with pyOpenSci, so in the Python ecosystem. So we are just about to get started. And the other thing I'll share is that some of these forums and workshops and what have you, we're going to make available to the curious community. It's not just for Stanford. So we want to open this door for all of you to join us and participate if this sounds like something that's of interest to you. Before we kick it over to Leah, I wanted to give Francesca a chance to introduce herself and to fill in any glaring gaps I may have left in my introduction. So Francesca, do you want to?
Sure. Hi, I'm Francesca. I work with Zach as the technical community manager of open source at Stanford. As he said, my main focus is really cultivating this maintainers and contributors roundtable. I'm glad he mentioned the Curious Deep Dive because these deep dives are almost identical in format in that we meet monthly with focus topics, and sometimes those focus topics are deep dives into specific projects for peer review. One thing I will add that is relevant to our partnership with pyOpenSci is that the members of the Maintainers and Contributors Roundtable are people who are currently working on open source projects. Some of them have been working on the same project for over a decade and are highly skilled research software engineers. And others, as Zach said, are postdocs who are inheriting a project, but this project is still at a pretty mature stage. One thing that is really exciting to me personally about working with pyOpenSci is that it allows us the opportunity to capture people who are more in the beginner stage of their open source software development journey, people who probably have not experienced any peer review on their code before. We had polled some interested parties across Stanford grad students, postdocs, and staff members, and we got a 50-50 split in are you currently developing an open source software project? Half of the responses said no. So we're really talking about beginners who are eager to get started on their journey. And I'm personally very excited to have Leah on to guide them on their journey and really build this open source engagement, not just for the most mature of projects and most skilled of developers, but also for people who don't know where to start, but now will have an avenue through pyOpenSci. And with that, I'll hand it over to Leah.
Thank you, everyone. And I loved that kind of segue, Francesca, of supporting the beginner-friendly, making a beginner-friendly environment around open source, because that's really what we are all at pyOpenSci deeply passionate about. So pyOpenSci, back up, I'm Leah Wasser. I am the executive director and founder of pyOpenSci. And pyOpenSci broadens participation in scientific open source by breaking down technical and social barriers. We're funded by Chan Zuckerberg, and we really got our launch start from the Sloan Foundation, so we're so grateful for that funding. We make it easier for researchers to find, maintain, contribute to, and build reusable software and code. And this is an image from a sprint that we held last year at SciPy. I founded pyOpenSci when I was at CU Boulder. So I was in academia for a long period of time. I was building an Earth data analytics graduate program, teaching a lot of courses, building a lot of content and lessons. And I realized how hard it was to both build packages. I was building software at the time, and I didn't know where to find the right way to do that. And also finding the right package. So as an instructor, as someone developing learning content, it was really hard to wade through all of the packages that were out there to find the ones that were actually maintained, that were actually documented in a way that my students could pick them up and start using them to process their data. And I spent a lot of time talking to maintainers and digging through code bases to figure out how to teach Earth data science at CU. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. There just has to be a better way. So I asked the question, what if we could help researchers with the pain points that they're experiencing? And often these pain points, they're happening in isolation at different universities. So I was an isolated example of like, I had no idea how to connect and understand and learn, but I was like eager to help my students. But it turns out that a lot of other people were struggling with the same thing. They just happen to be in different places. So what happens if we bring those people together? What happens if creating software and sharing code was easier? What happens if finding the right package was easier? And if vetted tools were in one place instead of you had to do all of this searching? So pyOpenSci was born out of those questions. We have three main areas of focus. So we run, as Zach mentioned, a software peer review program. I'll talk about that in just a moment. We develop open education content that is beginner friendly, and we run workshops around that content, around packaging, around sharing code. And we support contributors with contributing to the broader scientific open source community. And often their first contributions are at pyOpenSci sprints. We are an inclusive and vibrant community of practice. We're maintainers, we're contributors, we're researchers, we're Pythonistas, we're even packaging experts. We have researchers in our community, but we also have people that are in industry that are just interested in supporting scientific open source. And we'd love to add OSPOs, and Stanford is our first example of an OSPO that we're going to be connecting with, and I'm really thrilled about that. So together as a community, we make building software easier by having folks that are actually maintaining and building the Python packaging tooling in our community, by having folks that are actual experts in this area that's quite technical, and also having people that don't want to be packaging experts. They just want to figure out how to share their code. By having those groups together in the same place, in the spectrum of everyone in between, we can create content and we can run workshops that are not only beginner friendly, but the content is accurate, it's technical, it's presented in a way that people can feel confident that this is the right approach. So this vibrant community is really special, and it's something I wish I had when I was kind of coming up and getting my PhD as a young researcher. We also run a peer review program, so software peer review. The goal of peer review here is not the same goal that you might find with a scientific publication. It's about helping maintainers build better easier to maintain, easier to use software. It's really a constructive process where the package itself grows and the maintainers grow through that process. Once a package is accepted by pyOpenSci, that's not the end of our relationship with them because we also care that that package is maintained over time. And so if a package becomes unmaintained, we have a process for archiving it, for engaging with the maintainer about that process as well. We also see peer review as an opportunity to partner with other communities. So we're partnered right now. Our most active partnership is AstroPy. They had their own peer review process, and it didn't make a lot of sense for two independent Python organizations to be running the same type of process. So we work together. AstroPy leverages our peer review process for their community affiliated package checks. Then they have members of their community that are on our editorial team, and we have access to that reviewer base in astronomy. And through a single review process, you can be accepted by pyOpenSci, affiliated with AstroPy, and we are partnered with the Journal of Open Source Software. That partnership is really a beautiful thing because the journal publication is really that academic currency. It's that credit that software just hasn't been given in academia. So that is a triple win with a single review process. You can be published, you can be community affiliated, at least with AstroPy, and part of the pyOpenSci ecosystem. We always get the question, how are you different from the Journal of Open Source Software? So I wanted to just spend a very brief moment on that topic. We are very much Python specific in terms of our peer review, and our packaging guide that we developed, all of the guidelines in that are used to drive our peer review process as best practice recommendations. We continue to engage with the maintainers after the package is accepted. So we have that relationship. We have a slightly broader scope. So some things that might not be considered research focused, such as an API wrapper to access data, that kind of software might not be in scope for JOS, but it is in scope for us because we care about the full spectrum of the open science workflow. So those tools are important. And then we curate this library of maintained packages over time. But this partnership with JOS is really valuable because the academic credit piece, we really value being able to also support that academic currency. We've had over 300 people contribute to pyOpenSci. Every time I go to a meeting and we run an event, it's just really great to see community members and get to meet people in real life. And so I want to just wrap up with, I am so excited to work with Stanford. I can imagine growing our community and growing our network and having researchers across the United States at different universities supporting open science, supporting peer review, getting involved. Reviewing a package is a great way to understand, one, what it's like for a new person to come and try to use a tool that someone else built, like you get that experience. Also, it's just a great way to develop your coding skills, to see how other infrastructure works. There's a lot of learning opportunities there. There's a lot of opportunity within our community to connect and grow and network with Pythonistas from all around the world, people that really deeply care about scientific open source. So we would love to grow that community. And then Zach mentioned the trainings that we're talking about holding and the events we're talking about holding. We help people learn how to contribute to open source. We want to empower open source. We help people understand open source best practices, which, by the way, a lot of those are technical, but also there's a lot of social elements that can be very challenging to navigate. So I'm excited to grow our global community through this connection with Stanford, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that you all have. Just wrap up here with these slides will be on Zenodo after the fact if anyone's interested in them. And there's my email in case anyone wants to reach out. So thank you everyone so much for the opportunity. And thank you, Zach and Francesca, for really making this happen.